Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of Reykjavík International Film Festival, I would like, it is with my deepest pleasure that I welcome you all here this afternoon to Norræna húsið on Riff Talks 2021. This is going to be a beautiful afternoon. My name is Sigrid, and I have the honor to present this afternoon to you. In the next 2 hours or so, we will have the privilege to get to know 8 different artists which all have mastered their crafts in the world of filmmaking. The world of filmmaking and festival like these shows us the world. We will have insight to 8 different lives, 8 different worlds, through 8 different careers, which all combines through this art form. I have one experiment to make this afternoon. The experiment is that I will make one romantic entry line for each speaker, where I capture in one sentence what the artist does. Is that clear? Dear guests, after we have gotten the opportunity to get to know the artist a little bit better, how they work and how they see the world, we will have the option to ask all artists questions after each and every one have spoken. Ladies and gentlemen, some of us find ourselves very early in life. Some of us do not. It does not matter. Like my friend told me once, when you have found yourself, practice it every day so you don't lose the sight of what you love. I just wanted to share this with you. With my deepest pleasure. Our next speaker, our first speaker, started her career only 9 years old at the Icelandic National Theatre. Her career expands equally both domestically and internationally, where she has acted roles such as Hanna Ásgeirsson in Journey to the Center of the Earth and Unnur in Letter to Helga, which I am very happy, which is making, so they are making a movie out of it. Ladies and gentlemen, our first speaker, Anita Briem.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me. It's amazing. As an actor, you bear your heart and soul and body in front of a camera, and that's nothing, but this is somehow hard. So, with me. The stories that we need. I was in the car with my very dear friend the other day, and she goes, "Ooh, have you seen the new RuPaul's Drag Race? It's so good." And before I could roll my eyes, but not until after I had passed judgment on her lowbrow content intake, she added, it's all these people that are exploring themselves in an environment where they now feel accepted. And I stopped in my tracks, and I looked at my friend, and I thought how happy I was that she had a story in her life that was helping her, encouraging her, empowering her, because that's what she needed. And then I thought about myself, and I got very worried because I just finished watching Thomas Vinterberg's Druk like for the 7th time. You know, a story of a man who loses his spark for life and seeks cure in alcohol, so it's worrisome. No, just kidding. It's the most beautiful film I've seen in a very long time. It's a story about a rebirth of hope, which is what I needed. And then I thought, isn't it extraordinary that the mind, whether we're aware of it or not, it seeks out not only the stories that we want, but the stories that we need to help us overcome our obstacles, to deal with our heartaches, uncertainties, curiosities. I joined this profession because I really believe that stories they're vital to the human soul. I believe they make a big difference. Anywhere from sprinkling a little joy into a person's day, to sparking new ideas, to raising awareness on social issues in a significant way, to just having a flat-out life-altering effect on a person's well-being. Because stories have done that for me. At one of the hardest points in my life recently, I couldn't find a story to guide me through. And I found it really hard because what it did is that it made me feel like I was completely alone. When I thought, if nobody's telling stories about this, it must mean that I am the only person in the world feeling this way, and therefore there must be something really, really wrong with me, which, there undoubtedly is, but, that's another talk. So anyway, I started talking to people about these feelings that were upsetting me, and I learned that I was not at all alone. But people weren't telling stories about it. And I thought, why? And then I thought, maybe it's because it's of an uncomfortable, intimate nature on themes of love, lust, shame, maybe. But maybe it was because, and this is the question I want to propose today, maybe it was because female filmmakers have only really started to take significant steps towards having an equal charge of the narrative. And maybe that's why my story wasn't there. I moved to Los Angeles 13 years ago. And I walked into a world of very skewed norms, particularly in regards to women. I walked into a world where male executives would just openly exclaim, women can't lead big films because they can never bring as many people into the theater as their male counterparts can. They just, they can never make as much money. So that was just being treated as a fact. I walked into a world where it was being treated as a fact that actresses over 40 would just slowly become irrelevant because, the parts, they tend to dry up. The parts, they sort of just dry up. And it was a phrase. It was a phrase that was being thrown around a lot, and it was being very hurtful to women. It was skewing the norms, and it was stopping the flow of stories to a really big portion of the human race that really needed them. Now, I believe that European filmmakers have historically held women's stories in higher regard. They have told more women's stories, but these stories have been largely told by men. And I'm not saying that men can't make beautiful stories about women, because they can. I'm not saying that women can't make beautiful stories about men. They really can. But what I'm saying is that we need equal representation in our industry, the same way as we need equal representation in Parliament. And I do think that it's that important because stories, whether we're fully aware of it or not, they weave into the very fabric of our lives. They seep into our everyday. They help shape our ideals and social norms. And so having equal representation among the people who are deciding what stories are going to be told and how they will be told is important. Now, there are two main reasons that I felt compelled to talk about this today. The first one being that I think it's so important that we are aware of where we have just come from. As we are evolving, we are recalibrating our norms and hopefully just always becoming better artists and human beings. That we are aware that because we have just come from there, we need to nurture our female directors, producers, writers, composers, editors, DPs, and so on, as women are stepping into positions that have been largely occupied by men for a really, really long time. That we are aware, that we keep checking our norms and challenging them. And the second reason I felt compelled to talk about this today is because I wanted to take a moment to celebrate all the good progress that we are making. Really, I'm incredibly proud to be among you in this little filmmaking family of ours as we are really making great strides in this area. Do you know that when I graduated drama school, for the next 15 years after graduating, I worked with one female filmmaker. One. And in the past 2 years, since being back here, I've worked with 3 extraordinary female filmmakers, and I'm about to work with my 4th, and I'm being supported as a writer as I now embark on telling the story that I couldn't find. So I'm grateful for you all. I'm very grateful for the warm welcome that you have all shown me since being back here. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being brave filmmakers and for working so hard to tell the stories that we need.
Thank you so much. Next speaker to the stage is award-winning filmmaker. One of those who have traveled abroad to see the world and get inspired. He graduated from Columbia University School of Arts and has diverse range of films behind him, and it needs to mention that Canary, which was his thesis film, it premiered at the Oscar qualifying Foil Film Festival. As you can hear, I'm very international myself. The next speaker went on, and this film went on to play at over 30 festivals worldwide. Ladies and gentlemen, here is Erlendur Sveinsson.
Hello, everybody. It's been challenging to figure out really what to talk about when you're asked to talk about inspiration, talk about filmmaking, because there is so much to talk about. I think the best way to start is with me and who I am. I grew up in a small town called Álftanes, which is a suburb of Reykjavik, and it's known for 2 things. It has the largest water slide in Iceland to date, and it's also the home of the president, the presidential mansion, that is. And I didn't grow up watching or making films so much. I'm a part of the VHS generation, so I would watch movies religiously, 2 a day almost, 1 new, 1 old. I, always was fascinated by these, visions into the world outside of mine. And that kind of drew me to watch, challenging films, etc. But then things changed when I moved as a teenager to America. That's where my mother went to chase her MFA in fine art. And I took a film development class in San Francisco, which is where we lived. And it isn't until recently that I kind of discovered that was really the thing that shaped me in a big way, because I discovered the magic of film. It was a class where we made a pinhole camera. We created something to capture photos. And we also developed them in a dark room. And it is only recently that I have been kind of thinking back and starting to understand what it was that drew me to get so excited about this. And I think it's the engine that drives me today, and it's the engine that will, drive me till the end of time making films. And it is my fascination with time and capturing moments in time. And I like to look at cameras like time machines. They're little objects that allow us to capture moments. We can capture amazing performances. We can capture amazing light. We can create a situation that is very rare and maybe doesn't usually happen to people. We can create moments. And after this film class in San Francisco, my family went and bought a home video DV camera. And I was filming all the time. I would film my parents, walking around and eating and sleeping. I would film the trees, the birds, whatever. And I think it was me kind of discovering this kind of tool that I had, which was capturing time. And we forget it, I think, sometimes in the show business, in this industry that is so complicated and so big, that we are, in a way, filming people at a certain age and at a certain time in their life. Looking at old movies, and you are seeing somebody perform, a scene or whatever, and it's like, later on becoming a filmmaker, you understand that this person woke up that day and was kind of going through a moment in their life. And this is not just the actors, this is everybody coming together, making this thing. And after this, realization that I've been having, which is that we are, in a way, capturing moments and capturing time, it has kind of made me kind of frame how I go on, how I always kind of try to think of the big picture. I think directing today is different than when I was young and wanted to become a director and make films. It's changing very rapidly because I think my challenge every day is kind of putting myself in the shoes of the audience and thinking about how they are going to be experiencing whatever it is that I'm making at each time. And, I sometimes envy filmmakers back in the days when they made films mostly for the movies. But today we are always kind of faced with, the computer screens, the phones, television. You want to create, binge-worthy material that people will continuously watch. But for me personally, and I think this is kind of what I always try to think when I'm making something, is I like to try to create projects that allow you to set yourself in a big auditorium with people, and you create kind of an energy of people kind of coming together and viewing something magical and sort of experiencing a journey, whether it's with a character or whether it's multiple characters together. I went to the Icelandic Film School, which is kind of where I got my first film education, and I think it's very exciting that that there is more film education being available for Icelanders now. For me, it was the only way to study film. It was in 2007 when the financial crisis had or 2008, when the crisis had just hit, and I was, an eager filmmaker wanting to learn more. And it is at the Icelandic Film School that I kind of got my first, hands-on narrative filmmaking and working with actors and sort of moving on from, home videos of my parents. And then I worked in the industry for, 7 years. I worked on, in almost, I think, all departments. And then I went to Columbia University to pursue my MFA degree in filmmaking, and I made 2 short films there that sort of, opened a lot of doors for me. And I think, one of the things that I learned there about this jump into narrative is that, I wish I wish somebody would have told me, that there is something called a distributor, for example, which happened later. When I got my first distributor, it really opened this kind of huge space of being able to distribute films and sort of not having to work so much myself in terms of getting seen. And I'm very, very grateful for that. I think I'm a huge supporter of Riff and what they have done for me. I'm really honored to be here speaking today. I would like to tell you a little story about my experience with Riff, which is kind of an inspiration. There was, in 2013, there was a 1-minute film competition. I don't know if you have it here anymore, but I made a 1-minute film that was kind of this compilation of people breathing. It was these little 1-second little moments of people breathing in all situations, gasping, sighing, coughing, whatever. And it was all cut together within a minute under like a catchy tune. And that film ended up winning this competition. And it was a film that was made just kind of out of, spontaneity and wanting to take part in the festival. And then 2 years ago, when I was, or a couple of years ago, when I was studying in Colombia, I get a phone call from this huge ad agency in New York saying that they saw the film and wanted to get me to remake the film for AstraZeneca, the pharmaceutical company. And I went and made it with, it was like 60 actors and a union shoot, and it was this, huge production, the biggest production I've ever been a part of in my life. And it's almost funny to think that, something so small, which is just like an idea that you want to make something to take part in a festival or whatever. It's so important that these platforms are made for us, and you never know what it's gonna bring back to you. So thank you so much.
Photography is an art form which captures a certain moment in life and make it last forever. Lilja Jónsdóttir is one of those magicians which captures the moments behind the lens of the camera in filmmaking, which is of course said to be a total another film if it is captured. She has traveled the world and shot for HBO, CBS, Netflix, and Reykjavik Studios here in Iceland, and many more. Ladies and gentlemen, please give Lilja Jónsdóttir welcome to the stage.
Thank you. I wanted to start with telling you a bit about the story of my career, how it all began. It's a bit different, I think, from your regular photographer on set, but it has served me very, very well. And so I started my first job in film, I think I was 18 or 19. I started as a PA, production assistant on set. Then in time, I worked as a production coordinator, later production manager, produced some adverts, and basically sort of got a taste of most departments in the industry. At some point, I remember that I thought that might not necessarily be the right thing for me, but I was most interested in cinematography, so I thought, that would be something I would really, really like to do. So because of my years of working in production and in other areas, I'd also touched base. I worked as a second assistant director. I did some adverts and things like that, and this was my sort of next step. So because of that and because of knowing people in the field, I got trained up by a colleague to work as a second assistant camera clapper loader back then when we were still working on film. And then during that time, I quickly sort of found out and realized that that would take a lot of patience and a lot of staying still, which I'm not very good at, especially not at that time, and still not actually. But and so that would not be possible for me. I would have to move around a bit more. That what took over then was that I sort of thought that my film days were gone because I kind of had said goodbye to production. I'd had an amazing time, had an amazing group of friends, which I still have and still work with, lucky for me. And then I moved to England and traveled around a lot. And I didn't even realize at the time that during the time working in production and in these other fields, I had actually had a camera, whether it was a single use. And I was taking a lot more photographs in my life than I actually realized. I realize now because there's a lot of them everywhere. Also, I've always had a love for photography, a love of photography, especially when I realized that they age so well, much better than many other things. And they become more precious in time. Then, as I had been working as a freelance photographer in England for a while, mainly working in a studio and doing other sorts of freelance photography, which taught me a lot. And it taught me a lot because that I took into the set photography, because it kind of taught me how to read people and how important it is to read people, which is a huge thing on set. For example, knowing that, getting the run of the scene, obviously if it's not explosions and something that has to happen one time only, but if you have the opportunity, for anyone who is interested in that, is to kind of study the character or the talent or whoever you're photographing, because people they are kind of programmed in the most interesting way. For example, most people, they laugh and they go, not cool, not nice, and then this is the shot. So instead of going, and you save yourself about 50 really bad shots for your editing time. So that's one of the useful things I learned, as well as lighting and things, because you don't use flash on set. You need to be silent. And which also brings me to the topic of my current job, which I love very much. And that is that as much as important as it is to be not in the way and to know when to shoot, what moments to capture, I think it's extremely important to know what you're photographing, having the opportunity to read scripts, get to know the characters and know what you're doing, know the importance. And with time, you learn what works, what's used, and amongst other things. But my point of talking about all my previous positions is that it obviously gave me a big gift when it comes to this industry, because I knew the people, for one, not obviously everyone, but many, which and I had their trust, and they helped me, and they allow me to squeeze in, and not necessarily stopping, but we have eye contact. And as important as it is to not be in the way, it's also very important to gain the trust of the people you work with, because making a film or a series or whatever you're shooting is total teamwork, and it has entire team chain reaction. So each and every person is extremely important, and that's a very important thing to realize, because everything works together in one way or the other. So everyone will feel it in one way or the other. So that was one of my kind of advantages, when I started. So Then I was just there on my own doing my freelance photography in England, thinking that my film days were not there anymore. And then I get a phone call, and that was in 2014. And they were starting to shoot the first Trapped series. And they asked me to come into production, and I wasn't sure, but then I kind of justified it to myself because I thought, I know these people. This is going to be interesting. This is like, you know, we're in the middle of nowhere in crazy weather. This is going to be super, super picturesque. And these people are very important to me. So I go in as a coordinator, and I sort of try to do stills. I mean, it was a very hectic job, but do some stills of my friends in action. And that's kind of, long story short, how that started. Apart from one little story that is quite interesting in this, because beginning that production, I had my friend Jyoti, she decided to come and see me for Christmas. So as everyone in the industry knows, you're not really saying, oh, I need 10 days off over Christmas. That doesn't really work like that. You know, you're in or you're not. But I did have those 10 days off, and my friend came, and we were all packed up to go on a trip into a summer house. And as we're leaving, then my phone rings, and it's the showrunner, Sigrid of Trapped. And he says, oh, you know, there's a big scene tomorrow, and it's a big Danish actor. We need to document this, and it hasn't worked with the people we've been trying to use, and they're not used to set. Can you please do it? And I just remember this moment, looking at my friend, and I was like, I didn't even know. I mean, I didn't really realize this was an industry at that time. So I look at her and I'm like, can you imagine if I could be on set, which I love, and take photographs? Like, how incredible would that be? Like, this could actually change my life. And turned out it did. We didn't go to the summer house. It really didn't stop from there. Yeah, wow. So I've done all this. Yeah. So coming back to my fascination with the industry, it is full of incredible people. It is full of, you know, you need to have some serious stamina, and, you know, we have extremely long days and heavy duty hours, most certainly crazy weather in this place for sure. And you spend a lot of time away from your loved ones and your support net, and you're in kind of a language that you can't really talk about to people that don't really know what you're talking about. So you become a family. There is like a bond. I mean, you're together in the middle of nowhere for weeks or months on end, or another country or whatever, and they become your family. And this is the magic of film, of this industry, I think, because everyone gets so close, because things come up always in life, you know, and of course also when you're working. So, and the aim is the same for everyone, you know. And what I was going to say before, like, when I was talking about being not in the way and kind of being a bit invisible, then it's extremely important, I think, to introduce yourself to both the crew and especially the talents, knowing that they can trust you to not be in the way, because you can't be too close to their eye line. It can't be a sensitive scene, and it needs to be respected, and they need to know that they have you and they can give you an eye contact. If it is, for whatever reason, it doesn't suit, then they can go, you know, it doesn't happen often, but it does happen. And it's extremely important, in my opinion, because it's a gain of everyone to have good shots from whatever we're doing. And, you know, because of the work hours, which are obviously very much in the limelight now, especially in America, for a reason, another story, but worth mentioning, then, you know, it is a special bond you get. And to sum it up, then I feel very fortunate to be in the line of work that I am, to be able to see all the places I get to see, and hang around with the most amazing people. But I also take my job extremely seriously because it is a big responsibility to photograph a scenario and a scene where hundreds of people have put in their work, hundreds of artists and visionaries and, you know, the chefs, like everyone is important in one way or the other. And it's up to me to capture that in a photograph. And the photography that comes from productions like this, it is the work of all these people. It's not, and I just need to do it properly. If I don't do it properly, this is why I have a lot of pride in my work. And I'm very grateful to have the opportunity and to have the trust of people in the industry to do that. So thank you very much for the trust. And I hope this was interesting. Thank you.
Skúli Helgi is one of those who let us feel through music of sound. Sound, for you who don't know, is a vibration that propagates as an acoustic wave through a transmission media such as gas, liquid, or solid. Maybe Skúli will get to this later. Skúli has worked in many diverse productions, such as Verbúð, an Icelandic TV series which will be premiered here in Iceland on Riff on the 26th of December. And Ráðherran, or the Minister, which was honored at the TV Show of the Year in Eddan, Icelandic Film and TV Awards. Ladies and gentlemen, without the sound, we cannot hear. Without the photo, we cannot see. With both, we start a journey. Here is Skúli Helgi.
Well, hello. Hello, my name is Skúli Helgi, and I am referred to as a location sound recordist. So my responsibility on the film set is to capture original performances by actors. So that is acquired through a boom pole or a lavalier microphone, like I have one here. Hello, yes, all good. But I think my talk would be of a more kind of practical nature, like maybe what I've picked up along the way, you know, in this industry, and maybe part of your nuggets of wisdom. But the first time I ever recorded sound was obviously when I was younger. I was in bands. I was recording friends of mine, you know, playing guitar and drums, and not of the best quality. But one time there was a musician named Nick Cave who came to Iceland, and I was like, okay, here's my opportunity. I can capture that performance. And I was not old enough to attend, so I bought a ticket and I got a friend of mine to go in there for me, and I gave him like this little mini disc recorder and a microphone. Like, take this and the microphone, just go in there and, like, you know, no one will ever notice. It'll be fine. I'm like, okay. So he goes in. I'm very excited and waiting to get the results. And he gives me back the mini disc. I run home, plug it in, put my headphones on, and I listen. I'm like, okay. And there's this guy, he's like checking, 1, 2, 3. I'm like, okay, good. He's checking. Okay, first step, very good. And then I heard a vacuum cleaner. Like, you know, he's vacuuming his apartment. Like, oh no. Oh Jesus, he forgot to stop. Oh no. Then he starts watching Friends. I'm like listening to a Friends episode, like fast forward, like, oh no. And he basically recorded 2 hours of him doing chores at home. And I'm like, this is not, you know, acceptable. I need to fix this, because he had a show the next day. So I go in and I say, I'm gonna go into the show and I'm gonna record it myself. So I go to my dad's wardrobe and I get on a terrible looking suit, way too big for me. And I'm like 2 years, you know, I'm like 16 and I need to be 18 to get into Broadway. And so I go in there and I put the mini disc recorder like in here and I put it through my, sleeve. I'm like, okay, sit, wait in line. And I pretend to have a phone call just as they're trying to check my ID, like, oh yeah, wait a minute. And then I like kind of rush in, dive, find the seat right next to the sound guy. Best place in the house. Always sit next to the sound guy because that's where the best sound is. And I sit there very casually, like with my microphone, like this, trying to record it. And it's one of my favorite recordings of all time. It's fantastic. So there was one part where I made a mistake because I was super excited to see Nick Cave for the first time, and he says, like, this next song it's a murder ballad. I'm like, yes, murder ballad, nice. It's a morality tale, and it's called Henry Lee. And I'm like, just like completely ruined the sound. But it's this what filmmaking is to me, is like this persistence to just never really accept failure as an option. Like, persistence cannot cope with failure. It's just you never accept it. So that was sort of the thing that I wanted to talk about here, is that like when you're doing films, there are endless amounts of problems, especially with sound. When you're trying to record sound, it's like the universe is trying to make you not do your job well. So there are noises constantly everywhere, and you're like, and what I figured out is that the most important thing is persistence, obviously, and collaboration. Collaborating with all other departments is vital when you're trying to record good sound. And learning what it is that other departments do is super important. So, like, for example, if I'm recording a scene, like scene here, and I try to put a boom pole in the shot, and they're like, oh, shadow here, that doesn't work. So instead of saying, like, on the day, like, hey, this doesn't work for me, and I cause a scene, instead of doing that, I go to the gaffer who is in charge of the lighting and like talk to him before it happens and say, hey, could you maybe put a diffusion there and like soften this up, or put a flag over it, and before you arrive on set, you have to solve all these problems, and it's crucial to do that. Same with like costumes, makeup, hair. It's just you really need to dive into what it is that everybody else does instead of just what it is that you do. And like the first time I was working with like a Hollywood actor, and I was like super like nervous about it. And we only had one day and just one shot to do it. So I did, start preparing like a maniac, trying to figure out how it should be. So I start reading the script, obsessively. And then I see there's a gap in the dialogue where there's supposed to be a radio show. We're in a car, sitting, 2 actors in the back seat, 1 in the front. And there's supposed to be a moment where you turn on the radio and they listen. Like 20, 25 seconds, and then they continue their dialogue. And of course, being the maniac that I am, I the night before, I record this radio broadcast myself. So when we're in the car, we mic everything up, and then the moment comes, I press play on my computer in the other car, and then my voice starts coming out of the radio, and all the actors are like, what is he here? Like, what's going on? So it's sort of, this is called like over preparing. But like collaborating and being prepared is the main thing. So like the first time I got into this business like 100% was actually, it was right next door to here. It's in Icelandic. It's a like DNA research facility. And I'd been working on these small short movies and trying to make a name for myself. And finally I get the chance to work on this show called Sense8. And it's the Wachowskis who did The Matrix and all that. And I'm not in any sort of role that makes any difference. I'm doing like behind the scenes. So this is the first time I get in. And this is like when I fell in love with this thing called filmmaking, this crazy life that's called filmmaking. So I come in there like really excited, and then I walk, there's like a security guard, and I walk up to him and like, do you have a pass? I'm like, of course I have a pass, what do you mean? And then I walk in, and the moment I set foot in the door, somebody screams, "There's quiet on set!" I'm like, freeze. And I look up, and there's this like catwalk, really big catwalk, and there's this woman standing at the end, like short Asian woman standing, you know that stance where shit's about to go down? It's something's gonna happen, and like standing like this, and oh, this is exciting. And then call action, and like all these guys in hazmat suits and doctors and scientists come running through the woodwork. And I'm like, okay. And then like these Agent Smith type guys in suits with the thing in their ear, they come running towards her, and she just tears them apart with like all sorts of kung fu crazy moves, and they're all on wires and they're just flying everywhere. I'm like, what is happening? like the 6-year-old in me just sort of freaked out. And I'm like, oh my God. And then they go, oh, that's lunch. I'm like, okay, that's lunch, I guess. And like walk in, sit down, start eating the salad, and then Laura Dern, like an actress that I adore, who's like I've been following since forever, and she was in Twin Peaks, and she just sits next to me as having a salad. I'm like, okay, I guess we're here. Yeah, this is filmmaking. And that's the thing. It's just we're all sort of crazy about movie, and like whatever we can't live without it. You have to do it. And so I guess that's kind of the thing I wanted to impart, is that like this is like Lilia was talking. This is not just one person doing a thing. It's a collaboration between everybody. And if you can assist others and have others help you, that is the main thing that I think that makes a good movie. But yeah, that's kind of what I wanted to say. Thank you very much.
We are very lucky to be here, to get to know you and listen to you. It's very inspiring. I'm talking, of course, for myself, and you, of course, absolute. Anyway, we Icelanders are very lucky that usually we are not afraid to travel the world, to visit some place new and get inspired. From New York University in cinema comes Sigrid Regina. Sigrid is a script supervisor and a film archivist, which is one of the most important people in the industry. If we don't know what we have done, we cannot get better. That I always say. Sigrid has worked here in Iceland since 2014 in such masterpieces as Sparrows and Women at War, which both films have traveled the world. Honored guest, after intermission, please give a round of applause to Sigrid Regina.
Okay, so who here knows what the script supervisor does? I do. Okay, there's a lot of hands, not everybody, and a lot of you are lying. I'm just telling you the truth. I mean, I've been asked by a few directors on set what my job actually is. So I'm going to outline it for you. I'm going to give you some anecdotal observations, and through these I'm going to maybe reveal to you what I love about my job. Okay? So, this will be a description of invisible work, because if my work becomes visible, that means I've made a mistake. All right? Maybe it's an ode to the unsung hero. It's the editor's deputy. It is the director's consultation. It is the protector of the logic, and it is the champion of continuity. It is. Yes, thank you. The humble script supervisor. Okay, so I am essentially the editor's representative on the set. I am the on-set historian. Okay, I am noting down what goes on for posterity. I mean, for post-production. So what it is what I do. Okay, number one, It's the stuff that people most relate to script supervisors. It's the obvious stuff, the continuity. I am making sure, I'm ensuring that continuity goes on from take to take, from shot to shot, right? That means the actress is holding the hand in the same hand, the glass in the same hand, the same amount of water is in the glass, the costume is matching, the hair is matching, so on, so on. Is the sound stage matching the exterior that we shot a month ago, that we built now? This also includes the diegetical inner time of the story. So, you know, how much time is passing between the scenes and inside of the scenes, right? So this is a very collaborative element of the job. I mean, I'm working with costume, hair, makeup, art department, everybody. But ensuring continuity also means watching out for camera. So this is number 2. That means taking care of the eye lines. Is the actor looking in the correct spot to match their counter shot? This means watching out for the 180-degree rule, knowing what is covered, making sure that the slate is correct, putting, what is the take of the scene, the slate number, and that everybody's on the same page. So this is also collaboration. Talking to sound, talking to camera, Number 3, it is keeping track of the film time. So this means the traditional companion of the script supervisor is the stopwatch. This comes originally from making sure that we know how much film is literally going through the camera. I am noting how much of the film is being committed to a scene. And then this is also so that the production knows how much is being made. And this is also to be aware of the length of the film itself. So is the director slowing down their scenes a lot? Are they drawing things out so that it means that something is going to have to be cut in post-production? This is fine, but it needs to be a conscious decision. So I point it out. So I point everything out, right? So number 4, I make sure everything that is in the script is going to the screen, whether it's the description or the action or the dialogue. If not, that has to be a conscious decision. So I point it out. But that's not all. Number 5, the biggest one. Whew. This is me keeping meticulous notes on what is going on the set, right? So often the links between production and post-production are tenuous. The director is often the only person who is truly there in both production and post-production, and they have a million things on their mind, and they have a million questions coming at them. And this is where the historian's papers come in. These papers, that's what I have, that's what I create. This contains information on each shot, each take, technical information for sound, for camera, the director's favorite take, the comments to the actors and to the crew, the opinions of any other departments that are willing to offer them to me. Was the sound good? Was the camera movement correct? All of this goes in, right? But I firmly believe that my historian's papers are pored over like a manuscript in post-production. I believe that the editor reads my comments, my smart comments, and they understand the nuances of the notes that I write, and I believe that the director is pleasantly surprised that I've been eavesdropping on all of their conversations. And I even believe that the sound designer looks at my notes and finds a solution or an answer to a problem they've been dealing with. This is what I imagine goes on in post-production, and I would be thankful if none of you break this illusion. Thank you. But I really think there's something nice here in this link between the production and the post-production and being a part of that. Because context and history is what we're working with, and we're trying to make sure that every decision is a conscious decision, right? So I point things out and I take notes. Sometimes I'm the bearer of bad news. Sometimes I'm here to confirm the director's gut feeling or their take on the scene. All of the time, the historian and the link. What I do is all for the benefit of post-production, really. But how I do it, it depends on the people that I'm working with on set and my relationships with them, my relationship with the director, the way each department works, the actors, the camera department. It's different every time. Some directors need a second pair of eyes. Some need a script supervisor to be emotionally engaged in the actors' performances. Some need the script to be followed line by line. In any case, it always comes back to this documentation and this contextualization. Okay, maybe an anecdote from a set I was relatively recently on, Lamp. No spoilers, not much more than you can see in the trailer at least, so if you're sensitive you can close your ears, it's fine. But let's say we're shooting a scene where a man is falling asleep on a bed and the half baby, half lamp walks into the room, gets into the bed, lies next to the man, and they cuddle, and the baby looks at the picture, the sheep baby, looks at the picture on the wall and feels uneasy. This is a scene. So, what are some of the things that we're running into with this scene? We start with a wide shot, okay? We're setting the pace for the rest of the shots. We are making sure that any changes that need to happen are preferably happening here, so I need to keep track on these, and I need to note them down, right? This scene is shot in 3 stages. We have first a baby that is acting with a little swimming cap, a little green swimming cap with marks on it for visual effects. Then we have the lamp puppet, and then we have an actual lamp, which is wrapped and swaddled and acting on the scene as the last one, right? And I need to match all of these for continuity. The eye line for the baby is pretty easy. The eye line for the puppet, this is not a problem. For the eye line for the lamp, we need a person standing in front of the lamp and shouting at it, "Hello, ada!" the whole time. You can imagine how sound feels about this. Yes. And through all of this, I need to also watch that the actor is not getting differently agitated when he's holding a lamp that is squirming around and going, "Bah," instead of a baby or a puppet. In this instance, the VFX supervisor is the one trying to keep the attention of the lamp in the shot, so the eye line is correct. So I also have the responsibility of logging the relevant information for visual effects. So this is the specific placement of the camera, this is the height, the distance, the tilt, everything. Thankfully the lamp has no lines, but the man has 1 line. So sound is happy, and I am free to focus on other things than the lines. So there's where the stopwatch comes in again. How long is the scene supposed to be? When must the lamp look? And how long is the lamp supposed to look? Do we have the scene? Very rarely this is my call to make, but sometimes it happens. And this is, again, my love, the stopwatch. Okay, so what is it like for me on set? This is a very stationary job, pun intended. Thank you. There's not very many physical requirements, right? Like with other departments where you have, building and setting up and rigging and all of this. But my attention is required in every moment. So it's a job where, if you're doing it right, nobody sees it when it's on the screen, right? If they see it, it's a blooper, it's a mistake. It's a Starbucks cup in the back of a medieval castle scene. But you know what? That script supervisor probably flagged it and told them, and they probably said we're going to fix it in post. Honestly, because usually when you see a continuity error on screen, they were aware and they either said fuck continuity or we're going to fix it in post. Because sometimes it needs to be sacrificed for a performance or whatever other reason, but it needs to be, again, a conscious decision. So, also, maybe if you notice it, the movie wasn't good enough to begin with. I'm sorry, it's a hot take. Right, but it's also an incredibly privileged job. I sit by the monitor and everything that is captured goes through my brain. I see the magic happen when it happens, and I write down how it happened for the post-production humans of the future. The historian, the script supervisor. I hope you found this interesting. Thank you.
Our next speaker has mastered his craft through versatile of genre. Through his work as a director of theater, advertisement, music videos, documentaries, and now recently a founder of a computer game company, here is our next speaker, Palpin Albertson. Welcome.
Hi. Right. I've been on this kind of journey ever since I was a kid. I was born in 1983, not far from actually where we are right now. And I was always fascinated by stories. And but my initial fascination was not the, well, it kind of was, but my first love of stories was history. And when I was a kid, I got obsessed with Romans, and I got obsessed with Neolithic cavemen. I learned all about their drawings. I made my own cave paintings in my room. And with the Romans, like Roman soldiers, I really liked. Then I learned about, obviously, stories and narrative. And I really liked Asterix and Obelix. And I liked the Roman soldiers because they were so technical for their age. And I'm not sure, I mean, I'm 38 years old, but I remember when I was a kid, my father had a printer, and all the pieces of paper, they were all like connected. Do you remember these kind of old school printing paper? So I took one of his boxes, because my father he's a writer, and he teaches political science. And I took his box and I drew, I think 1,200 Roman legionaries in one line. So it would be like from over there to here, just on this, because the papers are interlinked. So I was continuously fascinated. And that was my first medium. I enjoyed drawing. I would draw and draw and draw. But I was, as a kid, very kind of peculiar, kind of obsessive about things. So when I was supposed to start learning to read, I wasn't very much paying attention, as I was kind of busy drawing. But then one day, I found this comic book, and I was like, that's interesting. There's a story to it. And I said, I want to write a story. And then my mother told me, well, then you have to learn to read, obviously, and then write. So I got really quickly over that obstacle, and I started writing my own stuff. And I was writing. I did my first comic when I was 6, and I just kept collecting comics and books and drawings and stuff. And it was going really well until that thing hit me called puberty, when my interests went into another direction for a few years, especially women, and so I kind of took bit different direction. I went into music. I was like my new way to express myself. And I was in music for a few years. There was always something I was thinking, like, I always missed this bit of, I was like, there's something missing, because music was great, and being in a band is a great experience. A lot of stuff I've done today, I base on being in a band. I learned a lot. It's like being in a marriage with 3 people. But there was always something missing. And what I really missed about was basically this idea of being a child. And as you get older, and you get debit cards and credit cards, and you go to school, and you get student loans, and you get married and have kids, it's always kind of difficult to being that kid when you have to be an adult as well. So it's like, I was thinking like, so I'm going to do all this creative stuff, I'm going to do all this work, but I have to be an adult. I mean, I hate being an adult. I took my driver's license when I was 29. So I was like, how do I do that? And I was always thinking like, there is a secret to this whole thing. There's like a hidden code somewhere. There's this really deep code I need to break, then I can be a successful creative and still kind of almost behave like an adult. But I wasn't sure where it lay. So one day I was really thinking about my life, so I decided to become a director. I thought, that kind of sums up everything I want to do. It's storytelling, it's visual, it's this and blah, blah, blah. So I went and started directing in England, then came back home, very adult with my wife, and we had a kid on the way, so it was full-on adult. So I was always thinking like, and how can I become a child again? Like, how will I do it? And it's like, and I was living in Gravarvogur, I had a fucking driver's license, and I was doing all these adult stuff. So I started working full-time as a director. My background is theater. I learned theatrical directing and acting. But I somehow ended up in commercials, which I thought was interesting, because commercials has this one thing I thought was part of the code, is that when you do a commercial, it's different when you do a short film or a film project, whatever kind of creative project, because in the end, somebody's paying you to do something, so you have to deliver something. It's a little bit of a different approach. And I did loads of commercials. I did lots of, then I started doing music videos and doing all kinds of productions and stuff. And I was like, yeah, but what is that code? Like, how can I break it to become this, like, inspired, creative person that still has responsibilities? And I think one of it is to continue going, is to kind of learn how to see opportunities. I had a lot of opportunities, and I thought like to myself, I'll just grab any opportunity I get in the business. I would do all kinds of funny commercials. I would do all kinds of different projects. And one of them was, there was this band, music band that contacted me. The owner of the company used to work with, his brother was in the band. And they were like, would you like to do their music video? And I was a bit like, they're not like, when you do music videos, obviously you would like to have high-profile artists because it's always a lot of work and sounding very shallow, but it is. And these guys were like, I met them, they were really cool, and they said like, well, we have an idea. We wanted to be about this guy who works in a video rental store. He's this loner kind of a guy, and suddenly he goes to Mars. And I was like, wow, that sounds a bit like my life. So I said, all right, I'll do it. And we started production. Then the video thing didn't work out. So instead, we shot it all here inside the library. And that was like a completely, when I thought about it afterwards, it's like everything went according to exactly how I wanted everything to go. And I was like thinking later on, why did it just happen that way? And I realized I was actually taking a lot out of my own life into it as a creative. So it wasn't exactly just me doing tailored work as a director. I was actually putting something of mine into it. In one of the scenes here, you can see there's a 2001 book by Arthur C. Clarke that falls out of a shelf and lands on the floor, and the main character picks it up. And I was like, wow, that's my book. So I realized I actually put a lot of my own life into it. So I was thinking like, that's me, I'm breaking the code. It's like, I'm getting somewhere, like, this is it. And I kept on going, doing productions, but I always wanted to do another thing, was also do video games. So it's very complicated trying to be a kid that is an adult doing all this directing work, then still wants to become a tech entrepreneur as well. So it's all kind of a bit messy right now. So I was always thinking like, well, before I become a tech entrepreneur, I need to start at the source. And my first aspiration as a kid, the first reason why I wanted to learn to read and write was to become a writer. So I was like, that's it. I'll go back to base one. I'll start on square one. I'll write a book. Do you know what I did? I read a book about how to write a book. It's called Synopsis. And it's very similar to scripts, but it's like, one whole page synopsis. You do all this stuff. It's really cool. That's like the fascinating bit of writing a book, is doing that kind of work. The difficult thing is writing the whole bit. That's kind of the tricky thing. So as I was learning to write a book, before I would do all the other tough stuff, I was thinking like, speaking of the code, all these successful actors, we have J.K. Rowling, we have this, we have that, we have Kurt Vonnegut, we have J.R.R. Tolkien. They must all have known the code. Sounds logical, right? Yeah. So I thought, I will learn about them and figure out what their routine was, how did they do it. And the more I research other authors, and more I tried to find about them, I realized I was just spending time on not writing. I was just trying to, research something. I wasn't doing anything proactive. So basically, when it all kind of hit me was when I was reading an interview with Kurt Vonnegut, a famous American author. He wrote famously Slaughterhouse-Five. And it kind of nailed to me what he said on writing. It's like that. This is the only tidbit I found. And I realized that the power I was looking for, this secret trick of becoming kind of a super creative that could still have the mindset of a child but still behave like an adult, this like superpower I found in Kurt Vonnegut. And one of his teachers was called Paul Engel. They taught like a creative workshop, I think in somewhere around Illinois in the 50s. And his teacher told Kurt Vonnegut that his dream was that one day their workshop would be so successful they would have their own building, like a temple to writing with like something like from the Acropolis, something really impressive. And above the entrance there would be an inscription in Latin. And I'm going to read for you what it would say. I'm going to try and do it in a very cool way. It would say, non tam gravissimi. Do you know what that means? That's the secret. And the secret to all creative work is, don't take it so seriously. And that's what I learned. As soon as I figured it out, it stopped being a chore, and it kind of really went into it really reminded me on the path I was on. So suddenly I was on the way to starting my own computer game company. That was like the next logical thing. I'm still writing, by the way. And it's like I finally broke the code. And the code is to use your own life, draw from your own inspiration. The other one is don't take it seriously. We're not doctors. Like, basically, the world could probably survive for a little bit without us, really, like, in the end. Like, somebody dies on a plane, they don't call for a rider. They call for probably anyone else before that. And so I just started thinking, like, if I ever have my own talk, it would be called, and that's like the most shocking thing, like, if this would become like a big seminar, I would travel the world and do conference halls. I would call it the Power of Cliche. Because the cliches are the most annoying thing in the world, because in general they are right. That's what I used to find so frustrating, but in the end it's true. It's like my favorite cliche, which really applies to my life and this search of the code, is like, it's not about the journey, it's about the destination. I actually enjoy more cooking than eating. I enjoy more writing it than reading. I enjoy more the shooting and the editing than watching it with an audience. So that's kind of my contribution as an artist and a director, because for me, no matter what medium I'm working in, even in computer games, it's just another medium to tell stories. And that's what I set out when I was a kid. That's why I learned writing and reading, and that's how I somehow ended up in front of you all lovely people today with my notes I just wrote earlier. So to sum it up, also, I think with like all the obstacles, there are loads of obstacles on the way, and one of them is just to try to decide on the obstacles you want to face. And like for me, I was always trying to do everything. I was producing, I was directing, I was writing, I was selling the ideas, I was doing this, I was doing the edit, and I was just completely stretching all my talent. So now today, I'm 38, I know what my strengths are and what my weaknesses are. So I focus on what I'm good at. If somebody asks me to do something I'm not very good at, I just say very politely, no thank you, I'm not that interested really. Without sounding like a complete dick, but that's kind of what I've learned really. And in the end, like all these jobs, no matter, for me, it's like no matter I'm doing a 30-second commercial or a documentary, or if I'm doing my computer game, for me, it's in the end what a director does, and this also applies to other parts of the industry, is that we design what the audience should think. As simple as that. For the audience, I design what they should think. On the set, the other job is just to get the best out of everyone, really, as a director. That's kind of my experience for the last 10 odd years. And when I apply all this to my computer game, and I'm doing management games, does anyone know what a management game is? Management game is about managing stuff. You could, like The Sims. Does anyone know The Sims? That's a management game. And in my management game, you manage the First World War, the trenches of the First World War. But there's a story to be told, because all the decisions you make on the front lines will have effect on the home front. So that's why I always try to find ways to tell stories. And I don't have time today to tell you all about the game, but it's called Vitar Games. You can all find it online, and we're currently financing. But that's like still, it's all a medium, it's all the same stuff. And yeah, I'm a funnel, and I just make sure that the flow of information goes to the audience in the correct manner, in the correct way, so nobody gets confused and everyone understands the story. So the more simpler, the better. So that takes me back to being that child in 1983. And that's where I hope to be here in the near future. So thank you.
You are what you eat. What we dress is as well a reflection of what we are, and if I may speak from my heart, I find nothing in the world as fascinating and beautiful as a piece on screen or on stage when the artists come together and make something which matters to them and then can reflect on audiences. On those notes, it is the magic of costumes and visual arts, which can say more than 1,000 words. And to continue with this beautiful afternoon, which I think we have had here today, I would like to ask and welcome Sylvia Lomentank here on stage.
Good afternoon. My name is Sylvia Lomentank is something I should think about, though. It's also very catchy. And I brought my laptop in case I would faint. You could maybe just come and read it for me. I'm used to being behind the camera, and at this point, the AD screams, "Final checks!" and we would come run in and fix the hair and makeup. So if we have any notes, please just feel free to tell me if I have something hanging off the back of my trousers or something. That would be nice to know. But yeah, I'm lucky enough, I'm a visual artist, by education, and I'm lucky enough to be able to work and call myself a costume designer. I've always been drawn to art and fashion, but coming into this beautiful business came as a chance or fate. I'm gonna go with fate because that sounds way much cooler. I come from a small town of 700 people on the other side of this beautiful island. And today I see that as a gift because growing up as a free child running around with no curfew, amazing landscape. Today at that time I could not get away fast enough, but today I see how lucky I was growing up there. When I was asked to do this talk, I started thinking back, which I never do because I'm never present. I'm always not in the now, obviously. Well, actually that's a lie because when she asked me to do this talk, I first over-dramatized it and, got a heart attack and, started flushing and thought to myself, I'm never gonna do it, even though I always knew I was gonna do it. But so here I am, and let's hope it's gonna go well. But then after all the drama, I started thinking back and I remembered a lot of beautiful things forgotten, which suggest my trajectory towards designing started much earlier than I had realized. First, I thought about my grandma, who was like bling, bling, bling queen of the small town of 700 people. She had a walk-in closet, which was not a common thing. It was full of sparkling, beautiful items, and I just loved going in there and playing dress up. I remembered something that I completely forgot. A 6-year-old me sitting on a bed next to the walk-in closet with a stack of Post-it notes doing a fashion collection. Something I need to find and put into production, definitely. Then I remembered the 10-year-old Sylvia going to the local fabric store in Reyðarfjörður, and then asking the local seamstress, who was a 70-year-old woman at the time, to tailor-make me a dress, something that I sketched up, and it's this fabric, and it should look like this and that, blah, 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 which she did. It was amazing, loved it. And after that, she made me a tracksuit, so everything hand-picked and designed by me. It's so weird, I've completely forgotten about this. And both perfectly thought out and executed to perfection, and voila, I got to wear my own creation, my own design in Reyðarfjörður, strutting on the streets. I found that to be just magical, and to this day, I still do. I never thought about learning how to sew, though. I don't know why, but I can sew to save my life, and I have. But still, to this day, I leave that to the pros. Making clothing was still very normal back then. My mom would sew if there was a Christmas photo shoot or whatever. A lot of people were sewing and making their own things, clothing-wise, because in these small towns you couldn't shop clothes to begin with. So I'm an only child, and my father is a fisherman, and so he was away at sea a lot of the time. So growing up, it was mostly me and my mom. And I remember spending evenings on end drawing and painting. That was kind of my thing. I loved painting, and I could forget about sleep and just paint. And that was today I realized that it feels very personal, and it's something that was not influenced by anyone. I've been lucky enough to have strong, independent women around me since I can remember, and I still do. And that alone is very special. And today, I see how much impact that has had on me growing up and still does. Girl power, woohoo. I remembered teenage Sylvia making her own clothing from weird materials, and a 16-year-old Sylvia who spent 2 months on a freezing trawler to impress her father, the fisherman, obviously, but also to try to become the boy my parents never had. But last but not least, to earn all the money to move to Reykjavík. But first, before I did that, I was going to go shopping in London. I spent 3 weeks on Oxford Street, I kid you not, and I spent every penny made that summer, sadly. I lived in Reykjavík for 6 years. I dropped out of college really early on, and I started working in fashion. And that was me done. Selling clothes on the high street, Laugavegur, living the dream. I mean, I had arrived. I was 18, but no, that got old very quickly. Even though, like, I got promoted to a buyer, and I got to travel and buy clothes for a living. I was like, oh my God, but no, yeah, that was like a few years. Then that was over. I decided to go to university, and I finished college like quite quickly while bartending and scrubbing floors. I applied to 3 fine art programs in the Netherlands, and as a backup, I applied to the Fashion Academy in Iceland as a backup, just in case they wouldn't let me in Holland. I did not get into the fashion program in Iceland, but I got into 2 in Holland, so there was my fate written in the stars, banished from Iceland. Literally, Holland, here I came. So I moved to Rotterdam, and I studied fine arts there in the Willem de Kooning Academy for 4 years. There I made like amazing amount of friends, talented, that are still inspiring to me to this day, obviously. But for like a girl moving from, like coming from originally a town of 700, moving to a city that populated then over 500,000 people, was just like mind-blowing. Just to meet so many people from all over the world. And I felt, when I moved over there, like I felt free again, like back home as a kid. No cool kids from Reykjavik judging Amy and competing, and I was just free and could just be myself, and kind of found myself in Holland, guys, really. I graduated uni in 2007, and by then I was selling paintings by the order. Again, living the dream. Everyone told me, you will never earn a dime of being a fine artist. Like, you might see a penny like after you're dead, as all the others. So I was like, I showed them. Maybe not, but in school, a side note, in school, before finishing uni, I made this big, there was a workshop, and I made a big charcoal drawing of a realistic tank. And it was so scary, and did not make me feel good to look at it. So I made another one that was pink and fabulous with a heart camouflage, and I called it Love Tank. Niels, a love tank. And that's how that nickname came about, and why I named my company that name. And I still love it. Good name. Although your suggestion was also amazing. After graduation, I moved to London. And I started an online fashion shop with my best woman in life, Heba, which was not really a big thing at that time, online shopping that is. But yeah, that got old, but today I missed that train. I maybe should have stayed over a little bit longer. But I got pregnant, moved to Iceland, back to Reykjavik, got a job as a preschool, rented a studio, and continued painting. One fine day, in 2012, I got a call from a colleague who was looking for an artist to assist a costume breakdown artist on the HBO Game of Thrones series, number 3, and they were then filming in Iceland. The timing was horrible for me. The preschool gang was going to go an all-inclusive paid trip to Boston shopping. And I was like, no. I spoke to my mom, and she was like, no, you have to do it. I hadn't even heard of Game of Thrones at the time. And my mom was like, no, I've heard about the show. I think it's amazing. You should definitely do it. And I was like, oh, God. Being the only child and, the good little daughter, obviously, did what my mom told me. And that job literally, changed my life forever. It's so funny to think about it. I worked with the most amazing woman on that job. Her name is Nina Ayers, and she taught me how to do costume effects. That in this case was painting wildling costumes, for those who know that series. And we did that every day for 12 hours a day for 3 weeks. And then I was completely in love. For me, combining painting and costume made the perfect sense. I met so many interesting people on that job, doing all kinds of different jobs that I had no idea even existed. From a truck driver to a DIT to like all the others. It's like, all of a sudden I had like a new best 70-year-old friend who was a truck driver, and it was so inspiring and great. What inspired me to become who I am today was literally that magical job. This woman, Nina, was kind enough to offer me and take a chance on me and offered me to join her for filming season 4 over in Belfast. I rented out my flat in Reykjavik, paid my way to move over there for a minimum wage. We worked 12-hour days, 5 days a week, slaving away in the studio, making an army after an army after an army for 7 months. That roughly, I calculated it, that's roughly around 1,700 hours of costume breakdown, and that was the best school ever. I'll always remember coming home, like, I literally could not feel my hands, I was just like trying to eat dinner, and it was, but we just like woke up with a smile the next day at 5 and did it all over again. We worked in, it's called the Titanic Studios in Belfast, and I remember, my arms, done that. No, but in Belfast I learned all the tricks of the trade, because I was a complete newbie and knew nothing. And there I got to meet my only superhero in life, Michelle Clapton, who is the designer of Game of Thrones. Amazing woman. And I would see her walk around the studio with her magic wand, and she had all types of different departments. There was a huge sewing room, a huge breakdown room, armory room, jewelry rooms, hat makers, everything, whatever you could imagine, it was there. And she would have her sketches, oh no, I'm a little more like this and that, and just magic happened in front of our eyes. It was so amazing. In Iceland, the ladder of, to climb the ladder is way smaller, obviously, and maybe why I got to grow up faster in the industry and get more responsibility compared to our colleagues elsewhere who are still slaving away on a floor somewhere, and it's very different. So I think we're in Iceland very fortunate to be able to grow up so fast. But when I got the opportunity to design, I knew it was a mixture of 1,000 little things. I needed to be able to communicate with people, visualize my ideas, and explain to the makers, what we're trying to achieve, just like when I was 6. Needless to say, I am not at Michelle's level today, but I'm sure and hope to be one day, because I really, really want to. Filmmaking for me can be a super stressful job. Someone said to me the other day, if it's so stressful, maybe you shouldn't be doing it. And I disagree, because I fucking love it, even though it stresses me out a lot. And I can never just whenever I'm on a job, I just it just completely consumes me. It's the only thing I think about. And I neglect everyone and everything, and which is something I should maybe work on. And but I don't know. Yeah, it's hard to compartmentalize. Just to leave, unwrap, just leave everything there and come home and be oh hey family. I'm working on it. I'm gonna be better with that. But to create to be a costume designer and to create a costume, there's so many things you have to think about. And it's such a big dialogue. You have the art. It's Lilia stole my speech a little bit earlier, but I was very happy to be speaking late. But now a lot of things have been said. But as they've all pointed out, it's a big dialogue between all the departments, and obviously no film crew is stronger than its weakest link, and that's so true. And I think sometimes you have a dick director, or a diva actress, or there's so many things that you have to Skúli, for example, sound, he doesn't love me all the time because I love plastic, noisy materials, and it's a balance, everyone needs to come together and find a good solution that works for everyone. not only costume, sadly. But yeah, like telling a story in a costume, like costume breakdown is so important there. You know, you can tell a story completely just with costume breakdown. And like in Belfast, I learned everything between how to spray a shade into a beautiful like silk dress, to making like massive dirt effects, like puncture wounds with blood all over, snow effects, la la la. So like that's something that is like really dear to me, and something like this off the rack from Sarah is like a no-no at all times. I heard an alarm bell go off over there. Yeah, on done that. Lily with the cards. Sorry. Yeah, but getting to play with all these elements and seeing them come to life on a set is such a magical experience. And on every job, I'm just literally in awe with what every department does, because everyone is like I think it's not very common to work in a big firm where everyone is just so talented. Like everyone has something amazing to offer, and it's just like it's such a we're so lucky to be able to work with such many amazing people. And yeah, today I was going to say I have a loving partner who is a filmmaker. And we met on set, obviously, because a lot of filmmakers don't have a big personal life. And I was thinking about like how whenever a job takes me away from home, like, you know, compared to my father, the fisherman, who was like away a lot, which is very common for a man, obviously. But whenever a woman leaves the home, everyone's like, oh my God, like, and where are the children, you know, and like, so, you know, classic and old and boring. Yeah, but with that, you know, obviously, if you have a family, you have to have a good support system, and we're lucky enough to have that. What makes me push forward when forward gets hard, Carolina, is the stress. For some reason, I love stress and panic, and the people, obviously. The end result, to see the magic on the silver screen, is obviously amazing, apart from the continuity errors we share, which is never our fault, obviously. And also just like getting reactions from people, and that happens a lot. People come to you and, you know, tell you your thoughts, good or bad, and if it sparks something with someone, it's magical. And that really drives me. And if I, to wrap it up, was gonna give advice to someone who's interested in the world of costume, I would say, I think first and foremost, fuck imposter syndrome. I've dealt with that like imposter syndrome on every job, sometimes 20 times a day, and that is a complete waste of time. Because we're all unique, obviously, and we all have something to bring to the table, and we all have a story to tell. And that's me done. Thank you.
Sylvia Lofthang! Ladies and gentlemen, our speakers are finished. Unfortunately, our eighth, Edvard Egilsson, the composer, could not make it tonight, but of course we will forgive him, of course. Thank you for coming here and share this with all of you. I'd like to ask all speakers tonight to join me on stage, and now we have a Q&A. Give them a round of applause. Já, flott. Þetta bara falleg lína, þetta gekk supervel. Þetta fyrir þau. Ladies and gentlemen, our speakers for tonight. Do we have a question? Of course.
Hi, I'm Tanya. I can just project. No, I cannot project. Okay.
Yeah, we have a microphone, of course, for audiences as well for speakers.
Hi, I'm Tanya. chose it because it's such a creative place. So I want to ask each of you, when you left your hometown, whether it was the 700 beautiful person town, or when you left Iceland to go to Los Angeles to be a huge Hollywood star, what did you learn about yourself in going somewhere else? Anyone who wants to take the question, and thank you.
I left when I was 16. Similar to Sylvia, I was like, I gotta get out of here. I was ready when I was to go somewhere else. I found it small, but I just think that I needed to explore. And I found it very liberating. I went to London, where I think it's, for any human being, but for artists, to go to another place where they do things differently, they have a different culture, a different way of doing things, is always healthy. And so, I've had a long journey of London and then Los Angeles, and now I've just come back home, and I'm so appreciative of everything that is home. So, welcome to Iceland. I hope you have a wonderful time.
Yeah, in Iceland, I think it's very ingrained in our culture to kind of leave at some point. And in Icelandic, there's a word which is útlönd, which basically means any other country than Iceland. And there's also a word which is sólarland, which is basically a country that has sun. So I think that says it all about kind of the way we structure our lives very often, especially in modern times, is that it is kind of good to get away and get perspective because we are so few. So for me, it was, I moved to Oakland, California, which was very different. I was being white, I was a minority, compared to Iceland. And it was also just like a melting pot, learning the new language, seeing different cultures come together, and I think it shaped me tremendously.
Yeah, for me, my traveling and living in different places has just, for one, made me the person that I am today, in giving me confidence to seek, for example, the job that I found out was a job, and was extremely happy and had the confidence to kind of take that to that place. But definitely getting to know other cultures, other countries, and respect for people, whatever situation or wherever they may be, I think has made probably the biggest effect on my life, and given me the opportunity to catch moments in a way that I'm happy with, and hopefully the others as well.
A side note, I have to say, when you asked that question, I think for me, like moving from the small town to the city, like when I was in college, if there was a problem with the teacher or the book, or like if I found something to be a bit off, the cafeteria, whatever, I was always go directly to the head of school, to the principal, and everyone would be like, "You went and spoke to the principal," because like that's how, there was not a lot of middle people in the small town, so you would just go straight to the head. And same in Holland, and I was always like waltzing around like, I owned the place, because that's kind of how I grew up, and people just thought I was crazy, but it worked, so that was the biggest thing for me.
It's a great question. Everyone has a great answer, but I think for me what it taught me was humility, because I thought like, I'm fed up with Iceland. I'm 24, I'm moving to London, and I'm not even coming home for Christmas. I don't need this. I don't need this place. Then I was so homesick, because I realized where you come from, you can't leave that behind. When you go searching for yourself, you don't search for yourself, you just ask who's searching. That's kind of where I came to when I looked out the window, I looked over the cityscape of London, I saw the Gherkin and St. Paul's and all that stuff, and I realized, why am I so depressed? I'm living the dream. What's missing? For me, it was the mountains. Mm-hmm. That's the perspective.
And the potato in your shoe.
Yeah, the potato in my shoe.
Okay, I kind of want to agree, because when I moved to New York for 5 years for doing a couple of master's degrees and a year of work as well. And what I learned about myself, I'm thinking now, is my own kind of pace. And it took kind of a while of being, introduced to something new and trying to figure out myself inside of a pace that maybe didn't actually fit me. I realized by the end I wanted to be able to go to the pool every day and have a couple of cats. I'm still in this feeling, but I do miss New York a little bit. But yeah, I think because it's something like I missed home also.
Yeah, I guess my journey was a bit weird because it's like that story, The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. It's like you figure out that what you were looking for was at your doorstep the entire time. So when I lived abroad, it was all about trying to achieve something amazing. But when I moved back to Iceland, I actually realized that you can make great things here and do amazing movies with incredible people. So I came back.
For me, no, I'm joking, sorry. Ladies and gentlemen, the time is up. I'm sorry we have to call this an evening. Dear speakers, all of you, thank you so much. We were so inspired and listening to you. Thank you. For you watching, thank you for watching in Norræna Húsið, Facebook and Riff. We see you next year. My name is Niels. Thank you. Good night.